So you talked about the fundamentalists, they don't really do missionary work, but hope people will just, when you read the history and come to them. Do they see that happening, or is the FLDS problems put a damper on that?
Yeah, the FLDS issues have kind of cast a shadow on everybody, I think that one of the things that kind of is prevalent through all the groups is a sense of isolationism. I've upset a lot of people. I've done television interviews. I've done public radio interviews. I even got chewed out a little bit before coming here today. And they have this reticence where they don't want to be visible, which to me, that it doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to work through a lot of the problems that have been created because of this isolationism, the solution is to come forward and speak. That's my opinion anyway. So.
Anyone else?
In your opinion, why do you think the mainstream LDS church, how come they've separated themselves so much from these fundamentalist roots that once were accepted by many of our relatives?
That's a good question. It mystifies me as well. I think that they worked very hard to distance themselves from a lot of these principles. I think in order to appear more palatable to the rest of the world. I think in the day of the internet, things, I mentioned some of the books that my dad was studying at the BYU Special Collections were books like Women of Mormondom, and they weren't really available to the public then until Leonard J. Arrington, who was church historian at the time, made those books available and published them again. And then in the day of the internet, anybody can search anything from, a plural marriage to second anointings to temple ordinances, and I think that information is so out there now that they can't deny it any longer. So recently, I don't know if you've noticed on LDS.org, they have sections where they actually discuss polygamy now. They've admitted to post-1890 manifesto sealings, and they've had to because it's like otherwise they're going to look stupid if they deny these things, So, anyway.
So in the profile that they read about you, it sounded like you do policy advocating for plural marriage. Can you talk about that?
I'm not specifically involved in the politics of it. I think that a lot of my friends in Utah have been at the Capitol almost every week since House Bill 99 has been going through. Since I live in Arizona, I haven't participated in that. Arizona is fortunate for polygamists because we don't observe common law marriage like Utah does. Thus, we're not, in other words, there's no statute in the books right now against polygamy. There's a ban in the Constitution, but there's no real viable statute right now against plural marriage. And I kind of feel lucky to be in Arizona for that respect. And, a lot of my friends are kind of in a state of mourning today and yesterday since this bill passed, because all of the fear of imprisonment and things that that we used to live under, are essentially for them back again, So. Yeah, you back up.
Yes. So it seems that these fundamentalist groups are fundamentally patriarchal, and I'm wondering if you see any chance of any kind of feminism creeping in, and if so, over time, if women ever became seen equal to men, would then the plural marriage evolve into communal living?
Communal living is in
as in polyamory.
A group marriage. Well, there are some groups that actually practice forms of that.
I mean, the Mormon fundamentalists. I know they're so patriarchal now, but do you see women ever getting any kind of?
Well, especially with different groups like the FLDS, there's a lot of abuses. Women are not treated well. But you know, it's always been my opinion that if plural marriage is lived correctly, you know, that feminism is something that's very possible. And I mean, any man who's had more than one wife, you know, just find out who wears the pants in the family, you know, in a family with multiple wives, and you'll find out it's not the husband. And doctrinally, doctrines like the fullness of priesthood and the second anointing, a lot of Mormon fundamentalists, like Martha Sontag Bradley, latched onto those years ago because the original Nauvoo doctrine made women equal in the priesthood with men. And the only Mormon group that I really know that practices that are the fundamentalists. And not all fundamentalists, but some of those who do practice things like the second anointing, those women are equal in authority with any of the men. And that's the way, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. You know, there shouldn't be, you know, this, you know, man lording over the women. You know, the men and the women should stand, ideally should stand equal. I'm not going to say that it's always like that, because obviously it's not. But the potential for that is there in the doctrine. I don't know if that answers your question.
So obviously the Mesa researcher that does Latinos in Mesa, how did that work go? I mean, were you all successful in finding a community, or what is the Latino response, given your identity is definitely Latino and FLDS?
Okay, I want to say that you know, the hits that we got off of the pamphlets.
Yeah, 0.
But there's not a day now, you know, that now that I have kind of a less direct approach, there's not a day that goes by that I don't get an email from somebody in the world. And we built quite a large community over in Concho. We divided eventually, like most groups do. That's a whole different story. Maybe one I'll tell one of these times. But I have to say that I'm really proud as a fundamentalist community up there in Concho, and those people that were affiliated with us. For a fundamentalist group, we were pretty diverse. We were mostly Latino, and Polynesian, Chinese. My wife is half Japanese. We had Filipino. We had people from New Zealand. We had people from the Netherlands. People from Canada. Out of any fundamentalist group that I've ever come from, or I've ever observed, the one we were in was the most diverse. And I'm kind of proud of that fact, even though it was an experiment that wasn't totally successful and kind of mostly broke apart, you know. But anyway, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
We have time for probably one more question. I thought I saw a hand back there. No?
Do you do any outreach or give any support to the damaged people that are suffering from the abuses that are happening in the FLDS communities?
Yeah, we try to, or at least I try to. You have to understand, the FLDS are an insulated group.
Right.
And even though I'm at Jessop and I'm related to practically everyone over there, you know, I walk up to somebody who is visible, you know, you see the pioneer dress, you recognize them as FLDS. I walk up to them and I try to talk to them. Guess what they're going to do? They're just going to, you know, they're going to clam up. My dad had a lot of connections there, you know, a lot of his uncles from back in the old days. I myself don't have as many connections there, but right now, you know, I have several friends that work with Safety Net, which is the organization there to put together by the Utah Attorney General's office. I just recently blogged and promoted an organization called Southwest Outreach Ministries that is providing food to those organizations. I've been talking to Tom Bennett, Tom Bennett is organizing a music festival over in Colorado City next month on April 22nd. I'm planning on going if I can make it out. I'm also kind of a burner, so right now I'm trying to decide between going to Saguaro Man or the concert in Colorado City. I'm just having a hard time making up my mind. But anyway,
Saguaro Man.
yeah.
I just want to point out, so a lot of people in those communities that grow up being taught plural marriage, when the outside message is polygamy is wrong, plural marriage is wrong, they need to escape polygamy, right? That's the term that we use. But that's like growing up in a family where, you know, maybe your dad's abusive or your mom's abusive, and the outside world is blaming it on the fact your parents are married. So in your mind, you know that it's not their marriage that's the problem. You know that dad has an addiction or whatever it is. And so when people leave these communities, they know that story isn't true, but that's the predominant narrative that's being told in society. So they come out and they know that that's not true either. So people like Moroni are very, very accessible, and I would say probably the most helpful in resources like that, because he has a different perspective that can say, I understand, like, the problems are separate from this issue, and there's not a lot of rhetoric out there that would support that. So does that make sense? So it's a very comfortable transition to talk to people like Moroni.
Yeah, and I'm always available for people to talk to. And I have to say that there's two types of anti-polygamists, okay? They're the kinds that provide services and who are willing to come to the table with other polygamists to change things, to end abuses. And then there are those that, you know, it doesn't matter who I am, it doesn't matter that I'm not for underage marriages or that I'm against abuse, that just because my name is attached to polygamy that they'll lie, they'll try to do harm. I had one lady that I'd been part of a website that was created by a Christian minister as a database for ministers who perform plural marriages, and just what the hell, I signed my name up to it. And it fell into, you know, years went by and it started getting spammed by porn ads. And this one lady started going around telling everybody that I was promoting porn, that I was peddling porn. And I was confronted by Mike Watkis from Channel 3 on this, and he says, is it true that you peddle porn? And I said, come on, Mike. I said, because I got spammed, a website that I was on got spammed. And he went, oh yeah, there's no story there. But you know, it proved to me that some people will lie and do everything in their power to harm you and to discredit you. And that's one of the reasons why I started speaking out like this, because I realized that if I didn't speak up for the way I believe and who I am, then other people were going to be, and they were not afraid to lie. So.
Okay, thanks for running.
Thank you.